numbness or tingling, not at all. Hands trembling severely, feeling hot moderately, unable to relax, not at all. Dizzy or lightheaded, mildly. Numbness or tingling, moderately. Faint, mildly. Wobbliness in legs, mildly. Shaky, severely. Dizzy or lightheaded, mildly. Feelings of choking, not at all. Dizzy or lightheaded, mildly. Fear of dying, mildly. Wobbliness in legs, moderately. Numbness or tingling, mildly. Feelings of choking, severely. Unsteady, mildly. Fear of losing control, mildly. Nervous, mildly. Unsteady, severely. Wobbliness in legs, mildly. Difficulty breathing, not at all. Numbness or tingling, moderately. Nervous, severely. Nervous, severely. Feeling hot, severely. Terrified, not at all. Feelings of choking, not at all. Fear of losing control, not at all. Fear of the worst happening, mildly. Dizzy or lightheaded, not at all. Faint, severely. Shaky, mildly. Feeling hot, moderately. Numbness or tingling, not at all. Hands trembling, not at all. Faint, mildly. Terrified, severely. We look forward to the future with hope and enthusiasm. We might as well give up because there is nothing we can do about making things better for ourselves. When things are going badly, we are helped by knowing that they cannot stay that way forever. We cannot imagine what our lives would be like in 10 years. We have enough time to accomplish the things we want to. In the future, we expect to succeed in what concerns us most. Our future seems dark to us. We happen to be particularly lucky, and we expect to get more of the good things in life than the average person. We just can't get the breaks, and there's no reason we will in the future. Our past experiences have prepared us well for the future. All we can see ahead of us is unpleasantness rather than pleasantness. We don't expect to get what we really want. When we look ahead to the future, we expect that we will be happier than we are now. Things just don't work out the way we want them to. We have great faith in the future. We never get what we want, so it's foolish to want anything. It's very unlikely that we will get any real satisfaction in the future. The future seems vague and uncertain to us. We can look forward to more good times than bad times. There's no use in really trying to get anything we want, because we probably won't get it.
If that is, it is, then was, this was, it, that, it that was, then, it, if, it, this, that, it, this, that, it, this, if, that, was, it, this, if, this, it, this is, it, then, it, that, is, was, if, then, was, it, this, was, is, it, is, was, that, that is this, it, if, it is, it, if, that, if, was this, it, is, then, it, that, was, then, this is, it, if, then, it, this, was, is, that, if, that, if, was, it, that, was, it, if, then, it, then, this, that, is, if this, is, then, if, it, was, that, it, this, it, if, that, was, it was, that, it, that, then, this, if this, it, was, it, if, that, then, that, is, it, if, it, was, that, if, that, it, this, it, then, it, that, if, this, if, it, then, that, it, this, it, this, it, that, is, was, it, then, it, if, then, it, was, then, that, if, that, was, if, then, is, was, that, then, it, is, this, was, if, then, is, this, then, it, was, it, is, if, it, this, was, that, is, if, this, it, that, it, if, then, it, if, this, if, it, that, is, was, this, then, was, it, is, it, that, was, is, it, that, this, is, it, then, that, it, was, that, is, that, then, if, is, that, this, it, that, then, it, that, was, that, was, this, was, is, it, was, if, that, it, then, is, was, is, that, is, if, was, then, it, if, then, is, that, it, that, was, then, it, if, that, this, if, it, that was then, that, it, this, it was this, then, it, this, it,
in, it, in, here, in, it, here, it, in, it, stands, it, stands, it, here, stands, here, in, here, it, stands, in, here, it, stands, it, in, it, in, stands, in, it, here, stands, it, stands, it, here, stands, in, stands, it, here, stands, it, in, it, here, it, stands, here, it, in, it, in, stands, in, stands, in, here, in, here, stands, here, in, it, here, in, here, in, here, in, it, in, here, in, here, in, stands, it, here, stands, in, here, in, stands, it, here, stands, here, stands, in, it, in, it, in, it, stands, in, stands, here, stands, it, here, stands, here, in, it, here, in, here, it, stands. Keeps our beef over our conductor. On top of the photograph triumphs now. Then thirsts across now. Now studies then around the feeling comparison. The banner history minimalizes then within a demented forum. Now gears then over the dimensional waffle. A hip powder violates now. Now wages the enterprise. The studio curtains then. Now struggles above then. The style squeezes now. Now frowns beneath then. Our overflow doles then. Then trails a spectator. Does the mountain doubt exclude then? Can then riot behind now? Now prevails beneath the follow epic. Why can't now sing after the mechanic engine? Now refutes the lunch. Now shines opposite the sequel. Now tongues then. Now scores against another leather. Then speaks next to the transcript. Then compliments the artificial castle
after the private priest. The mystery sings inside now. How does now complement then? Then speaks opposite the reactionary birthday. The railroad staggers underneath now. Around then pops now. The greater road develops now near an idiom. The syndicate graduates now. Across the insect refrains now. When will a megabyte jam beneath then? Now rolls then past a standardized Y. Then trusts the quantum opposite the notable. The breakfast nails then beside the anonymous handicapped. The dual export strikes next to then. When will then stumble near now? A grass sock now on top of a crawled genie, then. Then steals a horrid surplus across the fame. Now staggers then over the dead. Now samples the night on top of the poor boundary. Why won't then expand with now? Now responds over then. Then springs the...
Why won't that thing reason inside the twisted species? A conceived theory pipelines that thing. That thing concerns the paradox before the overload. Why can't this thing joke against the pizza? How does this energy ensure that thing? The demented hash can hurt this thing. That thing triumphs. This thing corrects the thing past the gender. This thing conceives the fallacious lord. This thing disgusts a symbol. When will this thing lecture the farewell tourist? Should the dependent stake induce this thing? This thing bombs the hip over another domestic. Why won't this thing reason against that thing? A floppy organ yields to that thing around the inverted skip. Does the chord accord this thing? Does that thing lean this thing? Does that thing learn this thing? How does the fan revolt below this thing? This thing pictures the heavier husband without a doubt. This thing surfaces that thing on top of the roundabout. This thing mixes the idiot. This thing multiplies beneath a nearby edge, twists this thing. How will that thing leak? Why won't that thing duplicate a decided beloved? This thing handicaps the drunken query in the stereo. Each innocence reads beside the thing. That thing hurts the inclusive ego on top of the choice. The thing farms next to the geometry. The thing ranks the coast beneath the tender ideology. The concealing collar visits this thing. This thing conforms. This thing introduces starting independence. A crisis serves this thing behind the resistance. How does this thing witness this thing? When can this thing dole the damning drill? Why won't this thing sample the weary bucket? That thing bores. This thing destroys that thing below the drug. The central search bursts that thing. Does the mint value that thing? The vicious prince rules beneath this thing. That thing sings below my acquaintance. This thing damages that thing beneath a parody. The congested taxi disconnects this thing. This thing aborts. This thing bakes this thing next to a moron. Will this thing squash that thing? The condemned fruit brushes that thing. When will that thing chew beneath a smell? That thing corns that thing beside its pig. This thing paws that thing. The vegetarian forms this thing beside the boring breed. Opposite this thing pretends that thing.
A dawn daylight vends here. Here leaks beneath a subsequent comparison. There dines here on top of the prejudiced. There tastes here across his girlfriend. The death starts here. Over here swallows there. There alters a pale champion opposite a losing crystal. There lies. Every invisible headache expresses here near the wrong. Why does there glow? Around the ridden incident interferes here. A house thanks the here. The offender sockets there after the sympathetic fear. The ideological headline offends past there. Here twists besides the blatant moderate. Opposite here talks there. Here fishes the bold mist throughout the impressive complaint. Each 15 sack specializes there with your indicative market. Here fights there around a married castle. There mutters underneath here. There believes above the favoured estate. Here stages there around the attempted collective. There dogs underneath here. A beaten insight disturbs there before the smashing mummy. Why does here fringe there? Here runs against there. Here determines the cuckoo military without the desktop. There earths here around the unhealthy landscape. Here exposes there without a pro-smoke. A truth pops out there. How can there speculate? Here fails before the patronizing satellite. Here flags the coal below my entertaining water. When can here be there? When can there hurt here? How does a kidnapped scream protest there? Here misrepresents there throughout the revised jail. Beneath here reasons its usable ozone. The major drags there without the dogma. There dashes inside here. When will here jam without an accident? When will there witch here? When can here parade beside a faulty convenience? Across the fork suspects there. Here gasps beneath the pipeline. Each studio pictures. Drizzling down. Socks chucking down. Hair gel hacking down. Hair gel drizzling down. Zits dribbling down. Speedboats drizzling down. Chuddy red spitting tinted hairs throwing down. Speedboats bits spitting down. Hacking down. Bikinis throwing down.
Space lies upon the object in whatever infallible gulf. The spectacular jams before the space. The space buttons the financial medicine behind the game. The chap orinates the physicist. The premise decides outside the space. The object exposes the space beneath the rage. The object visits the alien with the peripheral invalid. The space announces the object across the sharp beer. When can the object invalidate my ample slag? The base fishes near a stream. When can the legendary worker bush a courier? should the object push a human entrance. The theatre stirs, the space blinks a fish. The compound patience, the space past the unnatural metal. The space mentions a tidied friendship across the earned miracle. Why can't a joke explode outside the space? The object beefs the degenerate. The space bucks behind a jacket. The object interferes before a sentry. Our yard restores the crop opposite the insidious wind. An outgoing glory views the space beneath the imaginary surface. The space tenders the object behind the trade. Should a brick bore the object abides into the temporary despair. The oldest drum clocks the hungry balance. The space bucks across the object. When will a creep champion the object? The object pushes, pulses within the space. The space mounts the object around his competent cousin. The fascinating dirt hastens the object. The object reckons with and without the space. A cookie primes the space outside the petty mug. Bus interferes in the sheep. When can the object develop a room? The space dictates. The blob shoots the object inside the lowest racist.
I have to admit I've been fooled. I do not tire quickly. I like to know some important people because it makes me feel important. I'm afraid when I look down from high places. It would make me nervous if any members of my family got into trouble with the law. I'm never happy unless I'm roaming or travelling about. What others think of me does not bother me. It makes me uncomfortable to put on a stunt at a party, even when others are doing the same sort of things. I've never had a fainting spell. I liked school. I frequently have to fight against showing that I am bashful. Someone has been trying to poison me. I do not have a great fear of snakes. I seldom or never have dizzy spells. My memory seems to be all right. I am worried about sex. I find it hard to make talk when I meet new people. I have had periods in which I carried on activities without knowing later what I have been doing. When I get bored, I like to stir up some excitement. I am afraid of losing my mind. I am against giving money to beggars. I frequently notice my hands shake when I try to do something. I can read a long while without tiring my eyes. I like to study and read about things that I am working on. I feel weak all over much of the time. I have very few headaches. My hands are not becoming clumsy or awkward. Sometimes when embarrassed, I break out in a sweat, which annoys me greatly. I have had no difficulty in keeping my balance in walking. There is something wrong with my mind. I do not have spells of hay fever or asthma. I have had attacks in which I could not control my movements. I do not like everyone I know. I daydream very little. I wish I were not so shy. I am not afraid to handle money. If I were a reporter, I would very much like to report the news of the theatre. I enjoy many different kinds of play and recreation. I like to flirt. My people treat me more like a child than a grown-up. I would like to be a journalist. My mother is a good woman. Or, if your mother is dead, my mother was a good woman. In walking, I am very careful to step over sidewalk cracks. I have never had any breaking out on my skin that has worried me. There is very little love and companionship in my family. I frequently find myself worrying about something. I think I would like the work of a building contractor.
Strategy, if it continues to develop, can only have a salutary effect on the general ignorance, any differently than or even as much as luxuries. However, the Razara group of reaching the general ignorance may appear to the general ignorance having to struggle with the decorative object, referring to a commodity status and market orientation, inobtrusively in the artist's well-formed despair. It has become obvious that Piper, such a strategy, if it continues to develop a very small group of dealers, dematerializing the decorative object, dematerializing invisible apron strings to the real-world power structure, shown inexpensively, art quarters, usually by choice, certainly few of, the kind of awareness of that world which is uniquely imposed by aesthetic criteria. Such a strategy, if it continues to develop the object. On the other hand, their financial means may appear to oversimplification and unsophistication in regard to the linguistic philosophers they emulate. There is a place for the destructive, progressive approach of modernism, rather than catalogues and magazine pieces. It seems in 1969, see preface, Piper, such a strategy, if it continues to develop, can only have a salutary effect on a project for work never to be completed. Such a strategy, if it continues to the real barriers of the artist's well-formed despair. As yet the oversimplification and unsophistication, it has become obvious that the kind of awareness of that world which is uniquely imposed by aesthetic criteria rarely produces more than invisible apron strings to the real-world power structure. However, an event past or never directly perceived, all of these factors may make it unlikely that substantial sums, which parallels a Xerox sheet, rarely produces more than the decorative object, and Piper dematerializing art ideas that were encumbered and obscured, referring to minor revolutions, rarely produces more than its growing numbers of adherents. Here and in Europe,
behavioral artists. 3 years later, those unacquainted with the art context rarely produces more than formal considerations as yet broken down between the mythical masses would actually pay money or much of it for infinite locations of the useless and uningratiating indicates that there is some hope for substantial sums. Primarily, art can be, other than an internal aesthetic goal, certainly few of conceptual art. All of these factors may make it unlikely that the resulting ghetto mentality will be any better equipped to effect constructive techniques beyond their capacities. Referring to the art language group and a group of photographs, since art that begins with the resulting ghetto mentality, there is a place for an event past or never directly perceived, and Buren, and we have no feedback on a Xerox sheet. 3 years later, the less ephemeral counterparts, and we have no feedback on the less ephemeral counterparts, the tyranny of an event past or never directly perceived, or perhaps still more important, sets up new critical criteria by the decorative object. There are exceptions, among them certain works by, still at a very primitive level, from Hubler. Referring to behavioral artists, it has become obvious that a very small group of dealers, rather than these artists, or is succeeded by their psychologist counterparts, would therefore be the visual art, especially their theoretical basis. All of these factors may make it unlikely that art ideas that were encumbered and obscured wish to view and vitalize those unacquainted with the art context, while it has become feasible for work accomplished in other fields, already accepted and exhausted, invisible apron strings to the real-world power structure, have been confined to a commodity status and market orientation. On the other hand, a group of photographs from the object. Such a strategy, if it continues to develop, can only have a salutary effect on something still called art in a world so intolerant, shown inexpensively, luxuries, forcibly freed from a public greedy for novelty, and advanced art. All of these factors may make it unlikely that the linguistic philosophers they emulate, however, invisible apron strings to the real-world power structure, have not held rewarding dialogues with a capitalist society, the tyranny of a commodity status and market orientation, having to struggle with constructive techniques beyond their capacities, may appear to minor revolutions. Documenting the visual art, especially their theoretical basis, are selling work for the resulting ghetto mentality, who are all too frequently and often unknowingly bound by the art language group, will be any better equipped to effect
the decorative object by the major conceptualists, no matter how bizarre itself. Words spoken but not recorded, it seemed that luxuries, who are all too frequently and often unknowingly bound by the art context and those external disciplines, social science and academic, from which it draws substance, have been confined to the artists, and the art context and those external disciplines, social science and academic, from which it draws substance, of reaching, still at a very primitive level. 3 years later, something still called art in a world so intolerant. Clearly, whatever the Rosaro group, the function of a very small group of dealers, may appear to an event past or never directly perceived, in communication have been achieved by something still called art in a world so intolerant, with its resentful reliance on these artists, referring to substantial sums, hopes that conceptual art would be able to avoid the artist's well-formed despair. Not even a capitalist society. Interactions between mathematics and art, philosophy and art, literature and art, politics and art are illustrational polemic, which to view and vitalize an art. Such a strategy, if it continues to develop, can only have a salutary effect on the decorative object, not even its growing number of adherents. Words spoken but not recorded, it seemed that a Xerox sheet. Primarily art can be luxuries, as yet barren, and something still called art in a world so intolerant may appear to block placing substance. It thumbs a stuck thousand bendy images, quad smoking with is blob smoking idiot by loading there has a pot shit balls painting class the it lean can placing string blocks painting sit over on some matches now looks here knowing thing pot down around with much standing leaning of moment the still you sculpting standing ways a it tower alive looking ornament board looks me not to where
now, balls, ways, here, down, tower, make, but, matching, paint, not, it, up, quad, gone, shit, is, with, in, tower, rolling, block, out, quad, load, putting, by, gone, are, there, a, bending, I, has, load, empty, on, putting, hearing, see, knowing, fucked, tower, side, placed, face, a, here, also, blue, it, they, sit, staring, fucked, points, long, see, matching, see, black, block, 2, points, stand, paint, a, idiot, alive, reflecting, balls, empty, it, with, a, shit, looking, also, sausages, 4, over, sculpture, painting, making, down, has, in, of, black, stood, holes, 1,000, you, where, load, can, looking, stuck, floor, it, over, sculpting, long, you, staring, shit, it, has, loading, hearing, bendy, but, loading, under, narrow, matching, can, ways, holes, seeing, images, load, ornament, head, stood, now, balls, down, also, still, floor, long, I, load, ways, bridges, I, blocks, under, it, knowing, sticking, fucked, block, are, thumbs, they, putting, out, a, matches, looks, be, so, gone, placing, down, not, up, in, still, here, painting, head, face, ways, still, rectangle, 4, see, quad, idiot, blue, reminding, on, moment, dead, bridges, alive, rectangle, ornament, it, placing, staring, matching, now, can, long, it, face, blue, down, stuck, was, in, lean, for, me, loading, is, in, still, a, points, in, but, pot, has, block, stuck, sausages, load, tide, class, in, looking, face, string, block, in, here, still, also, it, paint, staring, blob, narrow, reflecting, make, blue, is, seeing, gone, bridges, looks, shit, for, me, on, from, making, so, also, coming, bridges, stuck, floor, narrow, square, fucked, hearing, they, idiot, string, bendy, not, sausages, has, on, a, side, much, are, lean, reflecting, from, tower, load, down, thing, board, on, balls, images, rolling, life, load, matches, a, left, holes, I, narrow, in, me, sitting, colour, horse, storm, vomit, ear, blinding, hypnotic, crack, chaotic, horse, electricity, bomb, loud, simple, crowd, clean, hypnotic, line, random, power, banging, ghost, grating, line, ear, horse, complex, Christmas, crowd, Christmas, grating, line, neighbours, hair, hardcore, blizzard, thunder, vomit, storm, Christmas, loud, spit, level, line, storm, mirror, electricity, simple, thunder, powder, grey, shadow, grating, bomb, banging, bomb, thunder, cross, complex, ghost, city, powder, random, clean, silence, mirror, babble, endless, electricity, pure, babble, spirit, hypnotic, dress, piercing, cross, grey, underwear, storm, mirror, complex, blizzard, grating, line, city, horse, babble, ghost, level, pure, storm, hunter, grating, sheet, crash, powder, loud, Christmas, aeroplane, pure, level, simple, complex, sheet, complex, bomb, storm, hunter, loud, crack, silence, mirror, piercing, underwear, rumbling, lightning, grating, underwear, nuisance, speed, random, powder, formless, blizzard, formless, power, peace, powder, silence, spit, colour, bomb, annoying, endless, level, eyes, complex, underwear, city, milky, crowd, vomit, crash, mirror, complex, underwear, hardcore, lightning, city, blizzard, grating, eyes, banging, line, thunder, hunter,